All right, so we'll go ahead and have y'all turn to y'all's Bibles in Daniel chapter 3. Daniel chapter 3. And we're going to start things off a little bit different. I'm going to actually ask you guys some questions and expect some answers from you. So don't be afraid to raise your hand. Don't be afraid to call it out. Most of these answers, most of these questions are pretty general. You should know them. It's not something that's, I would say, a difficult question or even a trap, so don't be afraid to answer. Just raise your hand, give an answer. But the first question is, what are some of the stories from the book of Daniel? What are some of the stories from the book of Daniel? Someone tell me. What is a story that you know from the book of Daniel? We all know them from Sunday school. What was one? Daniel in the lion's den. There you go. What's another one? He prayed as he did it 4 times. Is another one. Come on, there's more. There's more. Don't be scared. It's okay. What are they? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. There's another one. There's a couple more. There's a couple more. Dreams. The dreams. He interpreted the dreams. Maybe another one. Is that all we're going to get? Don't be scared. It's okay. Yes? Then Nebuchadnezzar? Yeah. Yes, that's a big one. Come on. I know there's some more out there. Don't be scared. When his son took the temple, not furniture, my mind is slipping, but the stuff he used to eat on, I can't think of it right now. But they used it and they not defiled it, but they used it in a defiling manner. So there's that one. What else? What else? Seth, you know what? I'm just kidding, Seth. The writing on the wall. Very good. All right, so there are all kinds of things that happen in Daniel where we can look at it and we can just be amazed by the story after story in this smaller book of Daniel. But I really want to focus in on just one tonight. But before I focus on just this one, I need to give a little bit of backstory before we actually focus in on the story, so you guys can kind of know where I'm at and in the process here of thinking and where the Lord is going to take us tonight. But I will say before I get started that I told my boss that I was preaching tonight, and later on in the day he told me the last thing he told me a couple of encouraging words, some different things, but the last thing he told me, which I thought was hilarious, so I would share with you, but he said, don't stop preaching until they all come forward. So get ready. I'm going to keep going tonight. I'm just kidding. But he cracked me up with that. I thought that was hilarious. I had to share it with you. But whenever we look at Daniel, and we see as they're pulled away from their families and as they're pulled away out of their homes and as they're taken out of their country, taken out of the place where they would call home. If someone invaded America and I was taken over to France, that would be a huge life shift, don't you think? I mean, I would have to be saying oui and whatever else I could think of that I would know, because they may not teach me the language. I'm not for sure. We went to, me and my wife, Rosie, we went to Mexico. And everywhere we went, I had to have her with her. Why do you think I had to have her with me? Because I don't know Spanish. I know a little bit of Spanish, and I know enough to understand what's going on, but I was not in my home country. And yes, there's people here that speak Spanish as well, but for the most part, you can trust that there is someone in the room that speaks English as well. But they were brought to this new country, a new language, a new style, a new culture, a new religion, a new everything. Can you imagine that? That is a huge shift. They're brought to this new country. Daniel, he was our not the main character tonight in our message, but he is the man writer of the scripture here, a portion of it, because in one of them it's another man. We're going to talk about him later. But there are 3 other characters that we're really going to focus on tonight and how they can be beneficial for us, looking at the example that they set forth. But before we look at their example, we need to look and see what example they were looking at as well. Because it's not just their example that we can look at, it's also Daniel's. There was a time where the king set out these I wouldn't call them, they are special, but they're smarter young men among the group. They were more educated. They had no flaws. The Bible talks about how they were talented in different ways, and they pulled them aside because they wanted to use them for various things. They wanted to almost use them as like a tool, I guess I would say, and train them up in government and maybe different things. I'm not for sure what all the plans were that they had for them, but they looked at them and they saw value in them to take and use them for their own benefit. And they come to this table, and the king wanted to feed them his meat, and he wanted to feed them all of the food that he wanted to feed them. And Daniel stands up and says, no. Now, you got to remember, this is a king of a foreign land. They've just been taken captive. You don't just say no to your captive. Do you expect consequence when you say no to someone that has you like around the neck? You are their captive, right? Is no an option? You can answer, it's okay. Not really. No, the answer is no. So whenever you're a captive and you tell the captor no, it usually doesn't work out in your favor. Daniel says no, not by himself though. Daniel does not say no in spite or in arrogance or in pride, but he says no because he would not defile himself with the king's meat. A lot of times they would use, and I could be wrong on this, but from what I researched, the meat that they would sometimes use would be maybe from a pork source, or it would be from a animal that was considered unclean, or maybe even used for different kind of ungodly sacrifices, and that's what they would possibly feed them. And so Daniel is standing up saying, by himself, by the way. We'll read the verse here. But Daniel, verse 8 of chapter 1, you don't have to turn there. But Daniel proposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he, granted this is a singular he, might not defile himself. Nowhere right there do we see Shadrach, Meshach, or Abednego yet. They come on the scene, but they're not there yet. Daniel is taking that step first. Usually the leader does what? They go first, right? It's not like a boss who says, hey guys, you go out there and get started and I'll join you once you guys are working and sweating and you guys have been out there for a couple hours. No, this is a leader who says, hey, I'm going to go first. I'm going to stand up and say, no, that is not acceptable to my God. And then we look and we see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego coming on the scene a little bit later. And next verse. Now God had brought Daniel into favor with and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who hath appointed your meat and your drink. For why should he see your faces worse likened than the children which are of your sort? Then shall ye make me endanger my head to the king? So this guy serves the king, and he's more afraid than the captor. It's like the guard with I can't think of the name right now. I'm thinking of Peter and Paul, but I don't think that's right. That they were in captive, and he was afraid while I'm going to mess that story up, so we'll just stay away from that example before I just throw all kinds of words out there that aren't even going to make sense. So we'll just keep moving on here. Then Daniel to Melzar, who was the guy, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. This is the second time they're mentioned. They were mentioned up here above. But just to kind of talk about their names, prove thyself, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give unto us pulse to eat and water to drink. So there we go. We see them coming on the scene after Daniel has already gone the first step and saying, hey guys, I don't know about all of you. And by the way, there was more than 4 captors. Daniel comes in. He's the only guy at first. And then the others come along with him. The other 3 come along next to him. So we see Daniel being a good example. Now, this is the introduction. We haven't started preaching the message yet, but I feel it's necessary that we need to understand where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego have been and what they have seen and what they have seen God do before we talk about what God does for them. Because that's important for our lives as well. Who goes before us and who we see trusting the Lord before us should be important to us. It should make a mark on our souls. We should look and say, I saw Brother Roger trust God in this position, in this way, and I can trust God because he came through for him. And God comes through for them here, and he actually blesses them because they trust him. And there's another one right after that where the king has a dream, and he asks all the wild guys to come in there who think they can translate the dream and think they know what he dreamt, and they can't really figure it out, and they don't even know. And so the king says, all right, now you're all just going to die. And Daniel and his Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are inside of that group. I can't think of the title that they held at the moment, but they're inside of that group of the smartest people that they knew, that they had in the kingdom. And so they stop, and Daniel says, wait. As the guy shows up, sword drawn, ready to take his head off, Daniel says, hey, just give me a minute. Yeah, that's not really the time where someone says, hey, just give me a minute. That's usually when the waiter comes to the table, she's about to take your order, and you say, hey, can you just give me a minute? It's a reasonable time to do that. But whenever the sword is on your neck, is not usually the time to say, hey, just give me a minute. And that same way, the guy is scared of his consequences. And we see God answers that as well. God gives the translation to the dream, and Daniel in turn gives it to the king, and the king blesses Daniel, and he blesses Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He actually promotes them into a position of government and authority. And so now we see Nebuchadnezzar, who was the king that we were just talking about a while ago. Nebuchadnezzar, who is that king that he just wanted to annihilate all these wise men and all the astrologers and everything else. Now we see him building a golden image. Now, first of all, if you got enough gold to build a whole giant image, I don't know how big the image was per se, but can you imagine having that much money, that much wealth, that you just can go, hey, let's gather up some stuff, let's just build an image. And he just builds an image. He just makes it. And he tells everyone that you are to worship this image whenever I say. You are to come to town. You are to come. He got all of his governors and all the princes and all the higher up authorities and all the higher up officials to come in and to worship. So he didn't just pick the peasants and the lower people and the average people. He wanted all the people in leadership, all the people above to come. Why? Because they're influential. Because they're at the top. That everyone else is looking up to them, and it's just going to trickle down. So if everybody on top is worshiping this thing, it's not going to take too long for everyone else just to kind of follow suit. That's what the king said. Okay, let's do that. And so that's what's going on here in our story, where we pick up. And we're going to start in chapter 3, and we're going to start in verse 7. Therefore, at that time, when all people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, all the nations, languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Wherefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews. Who are the Jews? Those three men we just talked about. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, for whatever reason it might be, Daniel was not present for this, and I tried my best to find an answer, but there really isn't an answer. If the scripture doesn't say, no one really knows, and so it's speculated that he was either on a professional business, or he just simply wasn't invited on purpose. So we don't know what it is. We don't know why he's not there. But that's all open for speculation because the scripture doesn't say. But who is there is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And this is where we're going to pick up on our story here tonight. This is where we're going to pick up on our message. And the first point is, comfort and convenience must not be of any concern. And I chose the word concern because a lot of times we're willing to step out, we're willing to start doing something for the Lord, and the first thing that comes to mind is, well, God, you told me to do this, so I'm gonna go for it, but that's gonna get in the way of my schedule here. Oh man, Lord, what am I going to do there? Lord, if I do this, it's going to be super uncomfortable. Lord, if I go over here and talk to this guy, it's not going to be a pleasant experience. He's going to get mad. He's going to get angry. I had a guy at work tell me not that long ago for doing the right thing. He looked at me and said, "You're not a Christian." And you wouldn't think you would get offended by that, but I did not do the right thing, and I got offended by it. And I went into this long spiel and everything, and it wasn't something that we should do. And it wasn't something that I needed to go off the other side and do. But as a Christian, I got offended. And I couldn't believe it, what he just said, for doing the right thing. The world doesn't know what is right and what is wrong. You can't assume that just by how we live and just by how we act, that they're going to know. I had another guy years ago tell me, he was talking to me and another group of guys, and someone else had actually told him that I was a Christian. He looked at me, he goes, "You're a Christian?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a Christian." How did you not know? And he looked at me and he goes, "You are?" I was like, "Have you ever heard a bad thing come out of my mouth? Have you ever heard a cuss word come out of my mouth? Have you ever heard this? Have you ever seen me do this?" And he just went, no. But the thing is, people don't pay attention that much anymore. They don't pay attention to these. Maybe some do. I'm not saying nobody does. But we can't assume anymore that people are just going to see my actions and see how I am and see how I walk and talk, and all of a sudden they're going to come to me wanting Christ. That's not how it goes anymore. Not anymore. That's not how it was in the first place. We're supposed to go to them with the gospel. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego have been put in a prime position right now. They could do what is easy. They could do what is comfortable and bow just like everyone else. Or they can choose to do something different. Sounds like our culture nowadays, doesn't it? You can bow to the culture, You can bow to the government. You can bow to whatever else you want to put in that category, TV, whatever you actually bow to, and you don't even realize. You may not be doing the actual motion with your body, but you're doing it with your heart every day. Maybe not every day. But what are we bowing to? I wrote down this quote, and I'm not for sure if it's from someone else. I honestly didn't research it. I was just thinking about it, and it came to my mind. But who will stand where you have stood, and who will bow where you have bowed? There is usually, I know I just had a huge rant about the world not paying attention, but there is usually someone, rather it be another Christian or rather it be a lost person, there's usually someone who is paying attention. I didn't mean to say that not everyone pays attention, but there is usually a few. We like to think that everyone sees us in our Christianity, that we stand out so much like a sore thumb that if I was to wear a bright yellow suit like a banana, that everyone would see me, right? That's the way we think as a Christian. Everyone's going to see me. Everyone's going to know. I don't have to do the work. That's not the case. Whenever they stood for what was right, they stood out. And it wasn't easy. If you were put in their position, where you know the consequences, I skipped that verse, I apologize, but the consequences were given just before then. If you do not bow, you're going to get thrown into the fiery furnace. They know the consequences. And so we see letter A here. They're in a foreign land. We talked about that already. We're going to skip down to letter B. They have been mutilated. They have not just in a foreign land where it would be, a lot of times it's easier for us to make a stand where we are comfortable. It's easier for us to make a stand where we know where we can run and hide afterwards. Kind of like that little kid that comes into the room and he really can't do anything, but he runs in there and he just goes, and he's just nonchalant, hitting you in the leg. But what does he do right after that? He runs away. He's comfortable. He knows where to get to safety. He's in a place where he is safe. They're not. They know whenever they leave there, they're already outnumbered back home. Wherever their home is, where they're at. They're in a foreign country. They have been mutilated and mistreated already, and that still does not stop them from making a stand. You know, a lot of times pain can be a huge deterrent, but these men are not afraid of it. They know the consequences that are coming, and yet they're not afraid of it. The big question is I wonder what we're afraid of. A little bit of pain, a little bit of making fun of, a little bit of, that's not real nice. I got demoted because I was a Christian. I got demoted because I couldn't go because I was at church. Whatever it might be that we look at and we're saying, I don't really know if I'm willing to go through a little bit of pain. You're not telling me. You're telling the Lord. You're telling the Lord that all the pain that He faced on the cross wasn't worth it to you. Like, a little bit of pain for me? No, I'm comfortable. And in America, I would say that we have probably the biggest problem with that. We are so comfortable. We're in our AC. I'm sweating, but you're not. But we're in our AC right now. We're in comfortable chairs for the most part. Sometimes you got to sit just right, but they're pretty comfortable. We got all kinds of things. We got a construction project coming to make it look prettier, to make it look better, to be a little bit more comfortable. People coming in. We are all about comfort. They weren't. Why should we be? Whenever we go home, we're going to think about, well, I'm going to snack on this or I'm going to eat that. I know I'm going to be hungry after this, so I'm thinking about, maybe you guys are too, I don't know. But we're thinking about, we're going to go to this restaurant later. We're going to go do this later. You have a freedom that they didn't have. And yet here they are standing firm, not afraid. And so we look at number 2. They stand accused in the spotlight. I don't know about you, but ever being in the spotlight like this position right here is pretty terrifying. Everyone's staring at you. Everyone has thoughts. Everyone has questions. Everyone has their own mindset. Everyone has their own face, and you're making different faces at me and all kinds of different things. It can get pretty terrifying up here. I'm not saying you guys look bad or anything. I'm just saying my mind runs too. And being in the spotlight is easy right now. We're all in agreement for the most part. But I can only imagine being in the spotlight whenever no one else around you is going to agree with you except for the ones that are standing right next to you is not easy. I would say comfort was of no concern to them at this point. What was their concern? To honor their Father. That should be our daily concern. That should be our daily mindset. What am I going to do today that's going to honor the Lord? Now, you don't always get to pick your schedule. You don't always get to pick the things that happen, but you get to make a choice in the moment. Am I going to honor Him, or am I going to try to defend self? What usually happens whenever you defend self? Usually end up, that was shameful. I shouldn't have done that. You end up embarrassed, right? I walked into a building at work the other day, and I came to the door, and there's a material that we have on the ground. It got kind of flooded the other day, so there was like a little step over piece of concrete to keep it from flooding, but a lot of water got in, and some stuff was on the floor, and it's just a slick concrete floor, and they put like some paint and stuff down, and there's this stuff called polymer, and it was on the floor. I stepped on the ground, and guess what happened to my foot? It went, whoop. Well, not so with that much resistance, but it went like that. And I went down hard. And guess what the first thing was? I felt shame. Why? Because we are creatures that have pride. We need to every single day die to self. And these men here are not concerned about themselves. They're completely concerned about what is going on. Whenever I fell, I actually hurt my wrist and I hurt my leg and I hit my knee on the concrete and all those things hurt, but I didn't feel them. I felt my shame first. First thing I did was look around. Lena's laughing because she understands. That's what everyone, right? First thing whenever you fall, because it's one of the most embarrassing things, I think me and Rosie were talking about the other day, one of the most embarrassing things you can do as an adult is trip and fall on your face. And it really is. It's even worse whenever you do it spiritually. More people pay the cost than just you. And it's not nearly as funny. Number 2, choosing to trust no matter the result. A lot of times we like to look and we like to see and we like to be optimistic. Like, oh, I know if I trust the Lord here, He's going to do it no matter what. You don't know God's answer. We know that He's going to provide all of our needs. We know that He's never going to leave us nor forsake us. But what is He going to choose to do? And maybe He will let you suffer the rest of your life so that you can be an example to someone else. Maybe He will have you go through some pain for an extended period of time so someone else can see, so someone else that you know can know about it and they can see your faithfulness and it can be an encouragement to their heart. But we like to think a lot of times, I'm going to ask God to take care of this and tomorrow I'm going to be all better. It's all going to be gone, all my problems. That's not the case. We have this false optimistic. Now that could be the case if that's God's will. But you see, God's will doesn't mean my results that I'm looking for. God's will is His results. God's will is His will. Makes sense? Not our will. It comes together there. So we're going to read a little bit more in our story here. We're going to start in verse 11, chapter 3. And whoso falleth not down and worshipeth, that he should be cast into the midst of the burning fire first. Oh, I had it wrong. Here it is. I'm sorry. Here's the consequence. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the provinces of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage and fury, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Verse 14. Now Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if ye be ready. I like how Satan always gives us that little second chance to commit a sin. He is not one that is not faithful. He is faithful to tempt. He is faithful to try. He is faithful to, I wouldn't say try. He is faithful to get you to change your mind about your right decision. I remember the first time I chose to go to West Coast, it was a hard choice to make. I was going to have to go out there and leave everything I knew here as a completely different culture, completely different everything, and that was hard for me. I'm a real homebody. I like it here. I love my family, so that was hard for me. And a week before I left, my uncle calls me and tells me that I'm going to have the most relaxed job ever, starting off $25 an hour. Back then, that was decent. And I was just going to have to go drive and make sure other people were working. I wouldn't have to do anything. I just have to go drive. All right, they're working. Good. Next. Go to the next spot. They're working. Good. I would have free room and board. It was a ridiculous start for a job. It was nice. A company car. A week before I left. I like to treat it as the bone before the steak, right? You're trimming the steaks and you're trimming it all up and you have all the fat and gristle and nasty stuff that nobody wants and you toss it off to the dog and you got the steak, right? Satan was just taking all the little stuff and like, here, Roger, here, take that. I was going to miss out on the steak, though. And Nebuchadnezzar gives them a second chance to maybe change their mind. Don't think twice that you haven't made the right decision when you know for a fact you're going to honor God first in the decision that you've made, just because Satan has given you a second chance to go back on it. They're getting their second chance to go back on it. What would be the first thing you would think about if you got a second chance to go back on something? Oh, I ain't got to worry about those consequences anymore. Woo, that fire was looking hot over there. I ain't got to worry about that anymore. Look at it go. Think about what they were feeling in that moment. They could be looking at that fire, staring and saying, no, I'll take that instead. I'll take that instead of instead of shaming my Lord. I'll take that instead. Christians, we live in America where that is just unheard of nowadays. I'll take the fire instead. But that is what they are saying. I'll take the fire instead. They knew the consequences as they stood. They knew their God. You know what's really incredible? Whenever you get to that point, whenever you get to that moment where you are looking down and you're seeing, hey, it's not going to look good for me if I trust the Lord and go forward here. That sounds wrong, but it's what we think a lot of times. It's not going to look good for me if I trust the Lord here. Lord, this is not looking like it's going to be fun for me. It doesn't have to be fun for you. It doesn't have to be enjoyable for you. But you know what's incredible? It's usually unenjoyable at the start, whenever you start doing something for the Lord, because you have so many issues between you and God that as you start fixing those issues, as the Lord starts making you into a new man, a new woman, all of a sudden this magical thing starts happening where you are enjoying it, you are loving it, you can't get away from it. Why? Because you're getting rid of all those sins, all those weights that were holding you back, all those things that were stuck between you and the Lord. You're getting rid of those things as the Lord is pushing you and pulling you more towards Him. But so many times we choose to say, no. But how does that happen? I got a little sidetracked. It happens by first getting to know Him more and more and more every day. You look at it and you say, oh, wow, how could Daniel do those things? How could he stand so fiercely in front of these soldiers with no sword in hand? Because he knew his God. It's just simple. We like to make it all complicated, like he must have had some guys in government that were going to help him out. He knew he was going to be okay. No. He knew his God. He knew His power. He knew His loyalty to Him. He knew His love to Him. And he wasn't going to back down now. Do you know your God? Here in a little bit, Nebuchadnezzar is going to ask a very important question that should be asked by us at key points in our life. Nebuchadnezzar is going to ask a question, and he will find the answer later on. But I want to know, who is your God? Who do you serve? Do you even know Him? That's a big thing that we need to answer. Because whenever you get to that point where a huge decision needs to be made, and all of a sudden you want to call out to the Lord who you have no idea who He is, you're not even going to recognize His voice when He starts talking. You're going to be like, wait, I didn't hear that one. Things are getting real loud. Can you say it again? In a crowded room, it's hard to hear a still small voice. My wife is 5 foot tall. Don't worry, babe, I said it. You're 5 foot tall. It's big. It's very important. She's 5 foot tall. She's a very little lady. And whenever we're in a large crowd or even another noise is present, I always tell her my hearing's bad, but it really isn't. I struggle to hear her voice because it's so small and soft whenever there's other noises in the room. In order for me to hear her, I will get close to her a lot of times and give her my ear, literally. And then she'll tell me whatever it is. When was the last time you gave the Lord your ear instead of asking for His? A lot of times we love God's going to give me His ear whenever I talk to Him. When was the last time you gave Him yours? When was the last time you said, all right, Lord, tell me, what am I supposed to do? I'm ready. Where am I supposed to go? It's kind of like whenever you're looking at the GPS and you're lost in some random city and here the directions going. Do you look away from it for long, even though you're driving, even though the risks and the hazards are all there? You look back to it, right? Where am I going? The road's in front of you, but you constantly looking down. The road's in front of you, but the GPS is here. Don't keep going forward without first looking down. Don't go forward without first asking, hey, Lord, am I supposed to take a left or a right? Hey, Lord, am I supposed to get onto this highway or am I supposed to just go straight? We are very loyal to to GPS. And then we get so angry when we got to turn around. Sometimes the Lord's going to ask you to turn around and circle back. And we get just as angry. He said, hey, you missed something back here. Don't be afraid to turn around. Trust me, there's always good things back there. If the Lord's telling you missed it, you're going to want to go back and get it. Don't think that it's just, I got to go back and it's going to be much longer. It might take more time. But it's because you weren't listening the first time. But don't worry, whenever you go back, it's going to be so good. It took me too long to realize that. It took me too long to understand who my God was, to really enjoy being a part of his service. These men here, we're going to get to the question now. Yes, we're going to get to the question now. I was getting excited. All right, so now, if ye be ready, we're in verse 15, I'm so sorry. Now, if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast in the same hour into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you deliver you out of my hand? This is one of the moments in this story where I start getting excited because I know who that God is. And I hope you know who that God is, but he doesn't. He has no idea. Shadrach, Meshach, I'm trying not to get too excited here. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they know who their God is. They don't have to tell him the answer yet because they don't get a chance to tell him the answer. I got to calm down here, or else I'm going to completely ruin this thing. So, who is that God? There will be a lot of Christians who will ask that same question once they see the fire. Who is my God? Is he going to be able to help me? Is he going to be able to do this thing for me? Faith is not something that is done in a question mark. It is done with a period. Now, it's okay to question and have the Lord reassure you, but it does not have a question mark on it. Faith is not a question. And I love these men, what they say. Shadrach, in verse 16, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. Trying to decide if I want to go back to my notes or I'll come back. Verse 18. But if not, Christian, can we say that right there? That but if not. A lot of times we will say, God's going to do this and God's going to do that. But if not, what then? But if not, what are you going to do? But if not, are you still going to trust? But if not, what's next? They are going to tell you what the answer is. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. And at that moment, Nebuchadnezzar goes so angry that the conversation ends. And this is where things get really, really, really exciting. Because now they're going to the fire, okay? The fire is not something that we look at and we want to say, oh, that looks so awesome. But it is. You don't know it yet, but this fire is going to be so amazing, so incredible. What is fire best known for? Someone tell me. Burning. What else?
Purifying.
What is it? Purifying. Very good. What else? Heat. What else? Destruction. Destruction. Fire is best known for destruction. Whenever you see the fire of life start overwhelming you, your first thought is, I'm going to be destroyed. I'm not going to last very long here. Lord, you got to do something. Back to the convenience, we like to go around the fire instead of go through the fire. I like in this case, they didn't get a choice. They got thrown into the fire, right? Hopefully that's not what always happens to us, but I'll tell you what, even though life doesn't always give the options, and if we can go into the fire willingly or go into the fire being thrown into it, both will be pleasant, and we're going to find out why. Then Nebuchadnezzar, verse 19, full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded that they should heat the furnace 1 and 7 times more than it was wont, to be heated. And he commanded the most mighty men that were there in the army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Sorry, I'm looking at the time. I got to be quick. And they cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound. That's a big thing. They're bound. They didn't even need to be bound. Sometimes life is going to feel like you are bound, like you're stuck, like you can't make a right or left turn, you can't do anything, and you don't know what to do. You feel bound by a situation, bound by a circumstance, and yet the fire is getting closer and closer and closer, and you're praying and you're asking God, God, where are you? So wait till you get to the fire. That's not something as comforting Americans that we want to get close to. We stay away from the fires. We have firefighters to handle that for us, right? There's no firefighters in the Christian life but Jesus. And if you're not close to him, you don't know his number, you can't get a hold of him. I haven't even been paying attention to my notes as much. They were bound into the fire. Thank you, Austin. Austin does a great job, by the way. Then these men were bound in their coats and their hosen and their hats and all of their garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king commanded, the command was urgent, the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. So this point right here seems like it's the boringest part of the story. It seems like it's the simplest part of the story. Like, okay, they're in the fire, they're dead, they're gone. No, this is the most, I gotta calm down, I was gonna put my foot in my mouth again. This is the most incredible part of the entire story. This is where I told my wife beforehand, I was like, I gotta make sure I put myself and keep myself in check because I'm gonna get too excited at this point. The big thing is this is where faith turns into power. It's not just that it's they're going into the fire and things like this. Is where this is where it changes. This is where we sit there and we say, I've trusted God, I've trusted God, I've trusted God, I've trusted God. Now he's going to do something. This is where things get excited. This is where the whole story changes. And oh man, I gotta calm down because whenever you look at this story, we learn it as children, but the excitement from it is so often put to the side. They're going into a fire. Bound by an angry king who has the power to destroy them any way possible. Look what happens. And these 3 men, here we go. These 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Verse 24. Then Nebuchadnezzar, the king, was astounded. The world's going to be shocked when they see the power of God for the first time in their lives. But they don't get to see it unless you're faithful. And rose up in haste, and spake and said unto his counselors, Did not we cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said, Oh, true, O king. I can see that guy right now answering the king. It's been a good day. Yeah, yeah, we did. Don't worry. No, I counted. There was 3. 1, 2, 3. Boom, they went in. Nebuchadnezzar's like, okay. Listen to what he says. This is the incredible moment. He answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men loosed walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and their form of the 4th is like the Son of God. Whenever you go through a hard time, whenever you go through something that's impossible, whenever you look at it and say, I can't, you're right. Every time. But you know who can do it? The one who sent Jesus to Mary, and I'm sorry, let me calm down, I'm getting too excited. Who sent the angel to Mary, and he looked into her and said, with God, anything is possible. And Christians, that same impossibility, that same going through the fire is something that we can do. We have the ability to do it, but we don't access it. We don't ever call out to God and say, God, let's do this thing. You said you wanted me to do this. It's impossible. I can't do that. You are right. Amen. You can't. And that is one thing that I love, because God looks at it and says, hey, guess what? You want to pick this thing up? Hey, step out of the way. Let me do it. You trust me? Yes, I trust you. Pick it up. All right. I'm going to take down this plant. He's just going to take it. He's going to do whatever the job is that needs to be done. But he lets you have a part of the glory. And not a part of the glory. He lets you have a part of it. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. One of the most well-known Sunday school stories is what is most needed for today in our culture. To go out there, to charge hell's gates and say, Lord, whatever you want me to do, I'm going. Back to what they said right there. What did they say? If it be so, our God who we serve is able. My voice just went so high that was embarrassing. One thing you'll find out about me is whenever I get excited, my voice just kind of keeps on climbing until you're like, whoa. But that is so incredible. That kind of faith, not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing where things are going to go, not knowing how much they're going to get burned, if they're going to get burned, not knowing how the Lord is going to keep them out of the fire. They have no idea. And yet, whenever they get thrown, I can only imagine the smiles that are on their faces as they get close to the fire, because they're not looking at the fire, they're looking past the fire. God, I don't know what you're about to do, but I am excited for it. And not just that, but look in here. And the form of the fourth man is like the Son of God. You know what's most incredible about that story? You know what the most pump up thing is? Whenever I was putting this message together and I was asking Lord what he wanted me to say and what he wanted me to do, I was getting so excited, because what better message on a Wednesday night than a pump up message? I was like, man, Wednesday night, I'm always exhausted, but tonight I was so excited. I was also nervous, so there's that. But what else do we need in the middle of the week whenever life has just beaten us down and hurt us in many different ways? But to remember who our God is. I love that Seth preached that message on who our Christ is, who our Jesus is, because that should drive us. And knowing who he is, he's going to take care of me. And if not, I still know he loves me. If he chooses for me to suffer, I still know what he's done for me. If he chooses for me to suffer, I still remember all the things that he's done for me before. Having that kind of faith is what will change the nation. With this little room right here. You don't have to have, if it was just 3 people here, right here, if it was just you 3, God could use you to change the whole country. If it was just you 2, God could use you to change the whole country. If it was just, I'm trying to find someone to sit behind. If it was, yes, I'm sorry. If it was just you, we like to use that word just. Get rid of that word just and say, hey, I will. It's not just me. It's not just you doing it. It is God. It was just 3 they sent into the fire, right? Where does this 4th guy show up at? In the fire with them. So many times we're scared of the fire. So many times we're scared of the pain. So many times we're scared of all these things that are coming up in our life, just coming at us too fast to even make a decision, to even make a right move. And we don't know what to do. But whenever we get in the fire, we want to freak out and be like, no. Just close our eyes and make it all go away. That's whenever your eyes need to be open. That's whenever your eyes need to be looking. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near. Number 3, confidence also found in the enemy. This is, I've been so excited for this. I got to calm down. The answer to the question. Nebuchadnezzar asked a question earlier on. I got to hurry. I got to hurry. Nebuchadnezzar asked a very important question. Whenever you talk, not just living around other people, when you talk to people and they find out the struggles that you're going through, just like them, they can be lost, they can be saved, they could be just someone in church who maybe doesn't know God, maybe does, maybe have gotten away, it doesn't matter. Whenever you talk to someone and you let them know the struggles that you're going through and how God has been providing and how God has been working, you know what the question they're going to ask is? Right there. Nebuchadnezzar asked it for us. Who is that God? Who is that God? The world doesn't know another God. The world knows the statues and the Buddhas and all the things that they pray to. The Buddhist monks are just Some of the tortures they put upon themselves are incredible. And yet their God doesn't know. And yet their God doesn't hear. But Nebuchadnezzar gets the answer to his question. Who is that God? He doesn't just get to hear about him. He doesn't just get to see his power. He looks out and he sees him in the fire because of these three men. I wonder who in your life is able to see Christ in you because you're going through the fire. That should be exciting. So many times you look at me and say, I'm going through it all. I'm going through this. And who are you talking to? Who are you trying to witness to? Who is seeing the fire in your life and seeing Jesus first? Nebuchadnezzar wasn't amazed by the fire. He wasn't amazed by anything else. He's looking at the fourth guy. Where did this guy come from? That's what they all want to know. Who is this guy? Where did he come from? Who is he? I have to be short tonight, but we'll go ahead and start closing here. And I'll say my last point. I'll go through them real quick. The king used to write scripture. An enemy of God. And if we look at the very next chapter, the first word in the next chapter is Nebuchadnezzar the king unto all people, nations, and languages, and dwell on earth. Nebuchadnezzar is writing the next chapter. You want to say the impossible? This guy's whole goal in the moment was to destroy them because they weren't serving what God he had. He sees their God. He ends up getting to know their God, and God has to do some more things to pull his heart over. But the impossible is done in pulling the heart back to God. And now we see Nebuchadnezzar writing not just a little bit, not just the little first part, a whole chapter in the scripture. Do you understand the weight of that? The privilege that is? What is it? Who does it remind you of? Someone tell me. Come on. I know it's in your heads. Come on. Someone tell me. Who does it remind you of? An enemy to a scripture writer? Who? Paul. It reminds you of Paul. Why is it that we see an enemy in somebody and we give up on them? We say, no, not them. No, Lord, they're not worth my time. They don't even like you. Nebuchadnezzar had no interest in God. And by the end of it, he's writing with God. The scriptures. A whole chapter. I'll tell you this story and I'll be done. I know I've gone a long time tonight, but I'll tell you this story and I'll be done. Talking about the impossible. Talking about the faith to see the impossible. I'm sorry. My mouth has been super dry. I've been so excited. I don't know how long ago. Probably about I would say maybe a year and a half at the most. I may have the times wrong, but the times aren't super important. Maybe a year to a year and a half ago, my sister-in-law got involved in some things that I say we, but nobody knew about. And they were demonic things. And they got a hold of her. Not so much where she could have been possessed. I never got to be there. I never got to be in the room with her during this time. But the demonic oppression was heavy in her life. So much to the point where I'll be the first to admit and say I was not Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I'll be truthful with you. I did not. It got to the point where my faith was not strong enough to say, God, I know you're going to do something for her. I give up. But thank the Lord, it's not just one other person in our lives, right? She had a daddy. And I'm going to do my best not to cry because it's let me get through it first. Roseal's father. He is a quiet little man that is tough. He's a quiet, tough little man. And he would, I wouldn't say make fun of, but maybe at times would pressure Roseal to not go to church, to not be a part of where she was serving, to not do the things that she knew that she was supposed to do for the Lord. He was standing against her, standing in the way at times. And this man, whose heart was broken, ends up, after a year and a half of not knowing what to do with his daughter. They've given her medication. They've sent her to the therapist. They've put her in a mental institution. They've done all that they can do. We've gotten calls where people are screaming, and it's just madness. And I gave up hope that the Lord was going to do something. But this man, who did not know God, went looking for him. because he knew it was what he needed. He found the Lord and he prayed. Whenever Rocio first told me that he was in church, he wasn't just in church in like the back corner or in the middle or something. He was in the front row closest to the pulpit. He was in the front row. He knew what he was looking for. And whenever he stepped to the door, he knew it and he found it. He had a daughter for all those years who had showed him who God was, who lived it and was faithful to him. It didn't take him long to figure out where he needed to run. It takes us a while, but it didn't take him long. Rocio was faithful for all those years. Rocio was faithful for all that time, and her faith was not going to be broken. Does it look familiar here tonight? Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego coming on afterwards. He comes along afterwards. He kneels down on that platform, and I truly believe he accepted Christ as his Savior. And then after him, guess who follows? Mama comes. I call her Mama. Mama comes and she accepts Christ as her Savior. And guess who ends up accepting Christ as her Savior and having their life changed forever? You would never believe, but you should believe. I didn't believe. Lilo. Her name's Lilo, I'm sorry. Her life is completely different now with Christ. Her life is 100% different. My wife showed me a picture of her, and she looks unrecognizable from where she was to where she is now. You know what it was? Someone had faith that God was going to do something. Someone kept on after it no matter what. They were praising the Lord. They were asking the Lord to do something, and he came through. You know, whenever you knock on a door, is it silent? No. If someone's inside, they're eventually going to answer. When you go running to heaven's gates and you're knocking on the Lord's door, you're asking for help, you can expect an answer. What he's going to do, I don't know. What he's going to say, I don't know. But you can trust him. Man, the Lord used that in my life. First thing he pointed out to me was, Roger, you're the Christian. You're the leader of your family. Where was your faith? It's in the mud, Lord. I shamed you. That's not something I wish upon any of you. These men right here, they left, check this out, they left from this with no shame and a promotion. Not just did they leave saying, whoa, did you see what the Lord did? We got a promotion. Guess what? You promote in your relationship with Christ whenever you get through that fire. You promote and you get closer to him. Get in Seth, real quick. I'm not going to put you on the spot. Whenever you get closer and closer to Melanie, does it feel like a promotion? It does. Whenever I got closer and closer to my wife, it felt like a promotion. Whenever you get closer and closer to God, it's going to be like a promotion. Well, my question is to you tonight. That question Nebuchadnezzar asked, who is that God? Do you know him? You don't got to look very far. A lot of you have him in your lap. Are you going to look for him? You can see some incredible things. The impossible become possible if you would just look, listen, and obey. Let's bow our heads and close our eyes. We're going to pray real quick. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for getting me through the message. I was so excited that you had to calm me down a couple times, Lord. But thank you so much for the excitement. I hope that everyone leaves today with that same excitement that, Lord, you are almighty. You are all powerful. And you're going to do something great in our lives. Help us not to leave from here thinking, Lord, I have so many problems. Help us to think only about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who looked at not their problems, but looked at you and said, you're going to do whatever is your will, and we're going to trust you all the way. Help us not to look for the results. Help us not to look for comfort. Help us not to look for what our will is, but your will. Help us to trust you no matter what. Help us to have the faith to see the impossible, Lord. Help us in our small church as we are, that you could do incredible things if we would step out for you and just trust you with it. Thank you for them listening so well for so long. Thank you for all that you do. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.